business. So there are kind of two parts to what we were doing, and some groups really focused on this first poem, and we had a good time talking about this first poem. And then I said this one was a little harder, but I think to make sense of this one, we got to do the first one. So here, I'll throw it back in the chat for those who are interested in parsing it out. So who can explain this for us? Has anybody mastered this first poem yet? What's the point of this first poem? You guys figured it out, Ellie? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. So for everybody following along at home, Ellie was saying the dust is sort of like what happens in life, the negativities that collect. And of course, if the mirror is our mind, then these are things that are collecting in our mind. And so we have to be careful to not let too much of these negativities affect us. I think that's a nice way of explaining it, particularly for sort of, I don't know, what people often think about their lives today. So that's a great explanation. One thing I pushed some of the groups I talked to thinking about is, what do you think? I guess there are a few things we could say. Maybe one place we could start is, how is the mind like a mirror? Did anybody think about this? I know at least one group did. Does anybody from the group that I talked to want to describe that? How is the mind like a mirror?
We were saying that how the mind is like a mirror. Whenever you're reflecting on the past, or your memories, is how you can relate it to being a clean mirror. And as you do things that are like impure or um, a bad karma, then your memories can, or if you're upset or angry, your mind could get foggy, or in this case, your mirror could get dust all over it, if you were trying to relate it to the poem.
Okay. I like most of what you said. There's one thing I'm going to push you on is, if you think about it, the past doesn't really exist, right? Can a mirror reflect the past? No. What can the mirror reflect? The present, only the present, right? And so I would say actually thoughts of the past would be more like dust than like the object of the mirror, right? Because again, if we show the mirror and we point it at whatever that clock, the mirror will reflect the clock and will reflect every change that the clock makes. It won't freeze it at a particular time. A mirror will never do that, right? A phone might do that if you take a picture of it or something like that. So how can the past be more like dust then? How does the past alter the way we see the present?
Can I call out here? Sorry.
Yes, I would love you to call out here, Colin. Go ahead.
Because I feel like the past, you can get like hung up on the past and kind of think too much about it, and it can prevent you from really like living in the future, and I mean the present, sorry, and like really experiencing the world around you like fully.
Yes, excellent. And so again, if we want our mind to be like a clean mirror, we have to be able to fully experience the present, like Colin was saying. And we could say the same about the future, right? You guys ever think about the future? You have to. I mean, I think about the future all the time. We said, okay, 2 more weeks of class, and you got to write a paper, you got to do this, you got to do that. Does that reflect on the present at all? Does that color in the way you look at the present? Yes, it does. Because then you have to think, oh, my life is so hard. I have to do all these things, right? And so this idea of keeping a clean mirror, it does have to do with the past and the future, but in some ways it's staying away from them, right? It's focusing on the present. Other things that might be this dust, we talked about the negative emotions, right? Just like the whole Buddha nature thing. This dust could collect and keep the mirror from reflecting what's really going on. Thoughts on the body is the Bodhi tree. I think that part's actually a little harder. The mind, like a mirror, is a classic Buddhist image. The idea that the body is like a Bodhi tree, I'm not positive what's happening with that. Do you guys have any thoughts? How is the body like a Bodhi tree? Reina? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great observation. Yeah. So what Raina said is she senses a little body-mind dualism. Have you heard this term before? Body-mind dualism. It's basically saying we have a body and we have a mind, and those are two separate things. People often blame Descartes for this, right, as being sort of the philosophical beginnings of body-mind dualism. But I think Raina's actually absolutely right to see it here, and Buddhists tend to be kind of dualistic a lot of the time. So it's not limited to the West as we usually think about it. And so she also said that the body, so this Bodhi tree is where Siddhartha achieved enlightenment. So maybe it's some sort of protection or even like a support. This is kind of special Buddhist language, a support for the achievement of enlightenment. It might not be the site of enlightenment itself, but it allows the mind to exist, right? Because when our body dies, then our mind goes off somewhere too. So, like I said, this one's a little more open in my mind. I'm sure people have written long books about each of these symbols, but the mind as a clear mirror. Again, this is a classic Buddhist image, and we'll actually see that in here too. There's a section on the mind being like the mirror. Okay, so here's the critique. Who got to the critique? I think I asked most of you to focus on Shen Xiu. The Xiu part is probably hard for you to say. Hui Neng, you could probably say Hui Neng, right? You guys want to practice saying Hui Neng? No, we don't need to do that. So what is Hui Neng's critique? Did anybody get to this? I know you guys talked about it, right? What is Hui Neng's critique? Hui Neng. And again, it is sort of like a Goodwill Hunting moment where like the Harvard chosen one, he writes this fancy poem, and it's a great poem, right? I think something that John and Cameron and I were talking about, how it implies a lot of work, right? To keep your mirror clean. It'd be like, trying to keep this thing clean, right? There is some dust on it. It'd be a lot of work to clean this damn thing. And, maybe somebody's job is to clean this thing. Frankly, I don't even know how this thing stays clean, but it's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work to keep my glasses clean. I don't know about you guys, if you wear glasses, right? I got to keep polishing them all the time to keep the dust off. It's a lot of work. So this is presenting a vision of enlightenment where you kind of gradually move along the path and try to clean your mirror, and it's a little bit nervous almost, right? You have to be constantly aware of keeping things clean. And it's sort of like the Headspace kind of program, right? Where if you subscribe to their program for a small price, then they'll keep your mirror clean for you or something like that. But Hui Neng, he's promoting a very different vision of enlightenment. What is Hui Neng's vision? What do you guys come up with? The Bodhi has no tree. Sorry, Bodhi originally has no tree. The mirror has no stand. Buddha nature is always clean and pure. Where is there room for dust? The mind is the Bodhi tree. The body is the mirror stand. The mirror is originally clean and pure. Where can it be stained by dust? He's taking these same images, right? The same symbols that Shenxiu was introducing, but he's turning them upside down. What is he doing with them? You don't have to answer every detail, but take any symbol, any line here and try to make sense of it. So before we were saying the mind is a mirror, now it's the Bodhi tree. Before we were saying the body is the Bodhi tree, now it's the mirror stand. Now he's saying the mirror is originally clean and pure. Buddha nature is clean and pure. I guess he's saying the mirror is Buddha nature, right? What is the point here? What is he trying to say? Can we make sense of it, or is this too difficult of a knot to untie? Is he saying we should nervously polish our mirror? He's not saying that. I think that's one place we can start. He's saying don't subscribe to Headspace. Don't nervously polish your mirror. Why not? Why don't we have to polish our mirror? It cannot be stained by dust. It is always clean and pure. There is no room for dust. It is too pure for dust to even come close to it. So what does that mean?
I was kind of this exact way you're looking for, but we were talking about how dust shouldn't be seen as dust, but maybe as something that helps us learn and grow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's exactly what you said. That maybe ties in first.
I think it ties in with the first one more. And just for the people playing along, Bren said maybe we can sort of learn and grow from the dust. But Huineng's really denying dust. He's saying there is no dust, right? It's almost like the Matrix where they're looking at the spoon. There is no spoon. Remember that part? There is no dust. Raina, did you ever hit? Mm-hmm. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, excellent. And again, it's a very difficult image to play with. And if your mind sort of hurts as you're reading this, that's the point. This whole tradition is built around these weird images that are supposed to challenge you. And again, this poem is very attractive because we can say, okay, this means this and that means that, and this is what it's saying, and we can sort of tie a nice bow around it. This is taking that bow and ripping it in half and turning it upside down and shaking it. And the reason it's doing that is because the whole method for this practice is to instantaneously wake you up. There's this moment where you're struggling with this poem. It's supposed to be sort of hard, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. How can the mind be the tree? I thought the mind was the mirror. The mind can't be the tree, right? And so as you're struggling with this image, eventually, some of us grow tired and just stop struggling, but eventually what's being promised here is with these struggles, right, something kind of shines through. And then you have this moment of awakening, or the scales falling from your eyes, right? We see it on the title of this book. It's an ongoing lesson in the extent of my own stupidity. If you read this poem and you feel a little bit stupid, again, it's kind of like what Jocelyn was saying earlier, it's creating space for you to grow, right? It's saying, oh, maybe there is a way of thinking about my mind and enlightenment that I don't quite understand. How humbling, but I want to understand. And so we see this goal that we haven't been able to reach, and then try to rise to the occasion. And so what Raina was saying is that rather than emphasize, I'm going to paraphrase, but rather than emphasize the dust, which is really what this poem is doing, it's taking this image of Buddha nature and emphasizing the Buddha nature part, right? And saying, well, that is actually what really matters here. That's what's really real. The dust isn't even really part of the equation. Don't worry about the dust. The dust will take care of itself. What matters is what's behind the dust. What matters is the shining Buddha nature, this enlightenment that is behind all things. The mirror is originally clean and pure. Where can it be stained by dust? He's saying your mind is enlightened now. All you have to do is see it that way, right? All this stuff about dust, that's just a distraction. Some of the other images, I could try to walk you guys through them, but I don't think we need to do that. The takeaway is Buddha nature is always clean and pure. The mirror is always clean and pure. And by extension, your mind is always clean and pure. Your mind is Buddha nature. And by seeing that, he's trying to awaken you. So again, this is Zen Buddhism. This is how Zen is done, basically. This is the Zen practice. Maybe I'll start with this one. Yeah. Some themes that we'll see are strangeness. Weird things happen in Zen. It's supposed to be strange. Silence is a theme. And again, with this idea that Buddha nature is ever present, and it's just our constant working, constant thinking, constant distraction that prevents us from seeing it, you could see how silence would be another image of Buddha nature, right? Sound is a distraction. Silence is enlightenment. And so there's another koan. Have you ever heard of koans before? It literally means public record. In Chinese, it's called gong'an. And these are records of question and answer sessions between masters and their students. They're questions like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? You ever heard that one before? I think I heard it on The Simpsons, and then Bart went like this. And he's missing the point, of course. And if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one around, does it make a sound? Have you ever heard that before? So these are famous koans, they're famous riddles. And both of these are actually playing with sound and silence, right? What is the sound of one hand clapping? It's saying, what is the sound of silence? Which is also Simon and Garfunkel song, the sound of silence. Zen Buddhism was popular in the 60s. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they were influenced by these ideas. It's asking you to think about silence. What is the sound of silence? It's trying to bring your awareness to this background, because that is the sphere of enlightenment for these figures. Disruption is another one. So you guys are living your normal lives, and then the Zen teacher comes in and scares you or does something crazy, right? And it's like really weird. And you're like, why is this person acting so weird? And again, the whole point is to change your outlook, change the way you look at the world. There's a sense that the reason we are unenlightened is because of the way we look at the world, right? Again, this is that humility where it's recognizing that we are stupid, right? There's a certain extent of our own stupidity that we don't even know. And that's the problem. And it's the teacher's job to come in and point that out to you. And again, there's a tie to what we talked about before with Tantric Buddhism. I know the way it was presented before was perhaps a little less appealing, but I think this one makes a better case in terms of what the teacher really can do for you, in terms of showing you your own shortcomings. And I think I skipped direct pointing, but that's sort of part of this whole process, is pointing out concrete examples of these shortcomings, but then also of this enlightenment inherent within us. So these are these two themes that really play throughout this tradition. Belief. So I started to point this out at the beginning of class. Belief is belief in your teacher, like we talked about. It's belief in yourself, but not just like your whole self. It's one very specific part of you. It's belief that you are already enlightened. You might not be able to see this all the time, but it's recognizing that there is perfection inside of you. We talked about rose-tinted glasses in one of the groups that we were in, and those apps that make you look more beautiful or more handsome than you necessarily look otherwise, right? And we were thinking, is this the clear mirror? And we were saying, well, no, that's not exactly the clear mirror, right? That's also sort of a distortion. But this belief is not seeing yourself as beautiful or handsome, because of course that's not going to last forever, right? That's one of these kind of more impermanent things. It's saying you are enlightened, right? You have what you need right here. You don't have to go out and get it somewhere, right? It is here. It is in samsara. It is in you. It is in right now. It is when you're taking your exams and you're stressed out and you have all this difficulty weighing on you. It's saying there is something enlightened and good inside of you, right? There's an incredible capacity that is in you right now. So this is the belief part. But the doubt part is that you're not there yet. right? We're still stupid. And that's also important to remember. Just to recognize, it doesn't mean you can't be there. It's just saying you're not there yet, right? And that it takes a little bit of effort or understanding or experience or whatever. And between the combination of these things, if you can do both of these things well, comes determination. Which, if you kind of are able to put this together, if you have this incredible capacity, but you are not quite there yet, determination is what takes you there, right? It's saying, let's do it, right? Let's run through this brick wall and let's make this happen. And so this doesn't come until page 75, which I think we'll read next time, but it's kind of quietly illustrated through even the parts that we've been reading. So we actually haven't even opened the book yet, but that's fine. I think we've covered a lot of the ideas. And so once we start looking at the book, then things like the chapter on there is no trash, that's page 27. Make sure you read that one. That one's probably the best one in the whole book. And these ideas are being illustrated throughout: belief, doubt, and determination. So that's all we got for today. That was a very nice discussion. You know, when I prepare for class, I usually make a bunch of slides, but we really only needed like 2 slides for today. So that's kind of interesting, right? So I'll see you guys Monday. Have a nice weekend.